Creator Spotlight. We are hosting a very special guest. His name is Eric Ninaltowski, the creator of Shadow Sentry, and I've invited him here today to talk about his latest project, Shadow Sentry Origins, which I was given the great honor to be a part of. So, welcome, Eric. It's absolutely awesome to have you here and to be catching up again the second time over.
Yeah, man, it's good to be back. And we did record another video, and it just didn't see the light of day. So we're gonna redo it, and this one's gonna be even better. So
Yeah.
excited to be back with you, man. And hello, all. Hail.
Hello, hello, everyone. It's great to have you here. So, how is the campaign going? I know that we're doing this interview a little bit late into the game, but you've had Shadow Sentry Origins out there for people to jump on board with, to check out. Link is in the description below if you are one of those people that I'm talking about and you want to see what Shadow Sentry Origins is packing. But how are you feeling about how it's gone so far? And did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed your expectations in terms of the success that it's seen?
So to be honest, I thought it was gonna do a little bit better. My other campaigns have done better.
Mm,
So, but on Indiegogo, it was shadow banned from the beginning, so you couldn't even search. Even when I had the pre-campaign up, it wasn't searchable. So I don't know if that's why. You know, God only
yeah,
knows. But it's not. It hasn't reached the funding that the other campaigns have. It met its goal, and it's still in demand, which is great. So it's still going to be available. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. But so I mean, I'm trying not to be discouraged. It is what
yeah.
it is. It could be many factors. So I'm just plugging away and just gonna keep it going, man.
Oh, for sure. Try not to be discouraged indeed. I don't know what this whole shadow banning business is about. And I'm surprised you, of all people, are shadow banned because you're the nicest guy, Eric.
I know, right? What's going
Yeah.
on with these
I
people?
don't I don't even know how they
They don't know
found
me,
your book to shadow ban it.
right?
So yeah, and I was looking up Shadow Sentry Origins in Google, and it was even hard to find there because I wanted
Really?
to get the campaign link and put it in the description while I was setting
Mhm.
up this interview. So
Yeah.
it is a bit of a strange thing, and Shadow Sentry Origins is just such a cool looking book that, man, if I was Indiegogo, I'd be wanting to showcase that on the front page, top row,
Right?
getting people on board with it. Because, I mean, they take a cut, right? I mean, why wouldn't they
Yeah,
want kick ass looking projects up there that is going to make people want to jump on board and back?
for sure. And
So
I'm
we've, yeah,
it's
go ahead.
it's my fourth campaign. I've done two books before this one, which were the Shadow Century regular series.
Hmm.
So it's like I have a record for fulfilling, and the other two books did pretty well. And like, why would you do that now? It's just odd.
So
But
strange. Yeah, you've got an excellent reputation. This isn't your first rodeo, that's for sure. And Shadow Century, tell us a little bit about where its origins actually did begin. When did you first start working on this story, which clearly means a lot to you because otherwise you wouldn't have stuck with it for so long.
yeah, so I mean, as a creator, I'm an artist, but I'm also a creator. I've been creating stories, coming up with things and characters for gosh, since high school. And you know, the time came, it was like, okay, if I had one shot and I'm gonna launch a book, like what do I do? What do I go with? And so, I had another story called War Gun. It was kind of like more like a one shot about one character. And I was like, I could do a really good job with that. It'll be awesome. But I was like, I love this story and I love the staying power that it has. I mean, this can go on for, forever. This is kind of like an X-Men type story. But the quick pitch is it's an X-Men meets the Matrix superhero team book with like a supernatural twist to it. So you have humans who have near-death experiences, and they return from the other side with these supernatural powers that let them break the laws that govern the world around us. So rather than having mutants, they're born as uh, they're born with these powers. I wanted them to be normal people, but then they're given these powers. So
Right.
that's the premise behind Shadow Sentry. And I was just like, this book, it's got a lot of characters, and I could do a lot of things with it. It can have like offshoots, other team books, etc. So it's just there's a whole lot to do with it. So that's why I chose to come out with this one. And then I did the 2 books in the regular series, and like I said, because it has so many characters, I wanted to just slow it down and focus on a few at a time. And so that's why I launched Shadow Sentry Origins, which gives you like the background and the backstories on 2 characters. So I'm focusing on Hopscotch and then Commander Noble. He's the leader of the Shadow Sentry. And yeah, and then we can get into how I tapped you to help me out with
Oh,
this.
yeah. Well, man, that's such a cool background story to hear about how you went from doing this one idea, which was a bit more of a single comic book show, and then you tapped into Shadow Sentry, which was going to be able to be expanded
Hmm.
exponentially, sort of like this legacy that you could put all of your time, all of your energy into, and just make it your sole focus rather than
Hmm.
trying out a whole bunch of different ideas. And so that's something that's really interesting to think about, actually, because sometimes I like the idea of one shots as testing products to put ideas out there and just see how they do. Plus,
Hmm.
you also get to wet your feet with a variety of avenues that you could potentially venture down in the comic book creating uh, world.
Hmm.
But instead, you decided to commit and stick with Shadow Sentry. What? How did you know that this was the one? Because yeah, sure, it was a team book, and there was a lot that you could do with it, but you could do that with so many different stories, and so
Hmm.
surely there's been times where Shadow Sentry has um, become a little bit monotonous, where you've wanted to try out something different. We all feel that way when we commit to a long-term project. We're like, oh man, all the other fun things I could be trying out right now. But
Right.
Shadow Sentry has kept you there. It's kept your attention.
Yeah. I think part of it could be the fact that it's got. I like stories that we can relate to and that are easy to like identify with. So this one has more of like that, like the biblical aspect to it, where it's like there's heaven and hell, and we can all relate to that. So it's not something you have to like. It takes 5 books to actually like get the universe across. It's kind of like immediate, and some of the other books may have taken like War Gun. It's kind of like another dimension, a whole new world, different things going on. So, I just felt like that Shadow Sentry, like right away, people can identify with it, and it's like it's not a super new concept. It is, but it isn't. It's a new take on an old trope. So I just felt like it's a cool idea, cool characters, and I could just run with it. I grew up with the X-Men. That's kind of what got me into comics, and I was like, this is my X-Men, and I could do whatever I want with it and just kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah. Now, the X-Men was definitely a mainstay for many of us
Hmm.
younger, aspiring comic artists back in the day. I know that back when I was first getting in, well, I never really got into the X Men, but the books that I was reading of the X Men back then, illustrated by the likes of Jim Lee. So, you can imagine how awesome that was to look at.
Yeah, man.
And your art definitely has that 90s comic book flavor heavily integrated within it. And man, I gotta say, so this is one of the pages where I was given the opportunity to do up a layout for it. And what you did with it is absolutely stunning. Like, this is awe inspiring to me. I feel like,
Thanks,
man, I want to get you on my projects now
man.
because you're just a master inker. Eh,
Thank you, man. I'm trying. I'm trying my best.
The way you've balanced out those blacks, and you've got the rendering incorporated in there just beautifully. It's really cool to look at because that stuff confuses me. You know, I try my best to balance out the rendering and whatnot and to make it look good. And you will do all of this traditionally, right? You go over the
Yeah.
top of this stuff with a pen in one fell swoop. And for me, when I'm trying to render, I'm constantly hitting the undo button because I'm digital, right? So
Right.
I don't know how you manage to just hit the right line every single time you lay that pen down onto the page. Are you ever nervous about that? That you're gonna mess it up or lay the wrong line in the wrong way where you're not supposed to put it?
Yeah, and too, just so people know, like I don't. So when I get your layouts, I'll print it out, and then all the rendering, all the cross hatching is kind of done like on the spot. So it's come with just doing it a lot and being comfortable with it. And yeah,
Incredible.
sure, I do mess up, but I'll just cover it with some black and carry on. But
Yeah, for sure,
no,
for sure.
but yeah. So this is my this is how I ink my own work too. So I'll do a breakdown. It'll be semi rough, and then I'll just kind of go in and ink it. And what I'll do though is to get myself warmed up, make sure I'm comfortable with everything. I'll do the simple straight lines first. I do my borders and just kind of hit the easy stuff. And then when I work my confidence up, then I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Let me go in and do the rendering and hit the faces and all the stuff that kind of is a little more tedious and you can't screw up.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking at your rendering style, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do it in two layers in each section, right? So you've got the hatches that you lay down first, and then you've got a second set of cross hatches that you lay in on top,
mhm,
usually running on a diagonal trajectory to the initial set of hatches that you laid in.
mhm,
Talk a little bit about the strategy behind that. I know it might be difficult to sort of talk about that technical stuff on a
mhm.
stream, but I'm really just interested to know your thought process, whether or not there's a reason, a rhyme or reason as to why you might do it in a particular way, whether it's just random, whether it matters or not, what direction that, especially the cross hatches, need to go in comparison to the hatches that you would initially lay down? Like, do they run around the form in some way, help to describe it, or is it just there for contrast's sake, there for a little bit of eye candy to increase the visual intricacy of the piece?
Yeah.
If I asked you what your strategy is behind that and how you like to think about it, would you be able to give some clarity on it?
I mean, all's I could say is maybe not super technical, but
Yeah.
you know, um, I love, you mentioned Mark Silvestri. I love his lines. I like, what's his name? Matt Banning, who inks him.
Okay,
I
Matt
think,
Banning. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
and so looking at his lines, they do have like that. They're not like it's not like a cross, right? It kind of has like that, I don't know, 45-degree angle.
Yeah,
Um, so I try and keep that in the back of my mind, and I try and stay consistent. You know what I mean? I don't
for
want
sure.
um, too many differing crosshatches going on throughout the pages. You know what I mean? I try to keep it consistent.
Yeah.
Um,
I go nuts
and
sometimes.
yeah, so um, yeah, so and with your work, I feel like your work is very reminiscent of like Top Cow in the '90s.
Yeah,
And so I wanted to hit it at that kind of, that kind of thought process. Like, all right, if I was inking like Mark Silvestri, what would I do with it? You know what I mean? So I'm trying to give it that kind of flavor. And so as I'm inking it, I'm kind of thinking like, okay, I want to be like Matt Banning here,
mm,
do these lines, and I want to put in like nice thick blacks in areas, and just kind of give it a good treatment. Because your line work is great,
thank
and
you, yeah. Hopefully, it's easy to work over,
yeah, yeah,
kind of.
totally. The,
Or at least
I-
helps a little bit.
for sure. I did notice some of your. I'm going over your like perspective lines, and I'm like, oh wait, that's not matching up. Hold on.
Yeah,
So I just have to like adjust a little bit. Like, okay, because some of the lines aren't like your lines are not like perfect. Like all of them are going straight to the horizon when you're like kind of sketching them out. So as I'm going over it, I'm like, okay, not every line is the one I want to hit, so I got to be careful.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was interesting because when I first started working on the book, I remember you telling me that you wanted to have those perspective overlays on top of the panels, which was a really cool idea. I mean, that's talk about the full package, right? And
right.
then I started getting really stuck on confining my scenes within those perspective grids. And so it
Mm,
was messing with me a little bit. So, what I would do afterwards in order to break out of that, because I wasn't able to really construct the scene properly somehow,
hmm.
while my head was stuck in the perspective and getting the perspective correct, I'm a bit more conceptual when it comes to composing my scenes. And
Sure.
so, I'd just sketch it out a little bit first, and then I'd lay the perspective grid over the top based on that sketch and try to neaten things up. Not enough, apparently, but I'm glad that that's why you're there, and you made sure that everything was in check. Thank goodness, because
Yeah, yeah.
in the end, I feel like we really pulled together a great looking uh, page here and throughout the rest of the Hopscotch story. Like, I'm just blown away with what we're capable of when we join forces, Eric.
Hmm.
It's really cool to see because you really do capture that awesome 90s flavor of line art that I could only dream of my art being, and you've returned it into that. So that's really cool.
Cool, man. Glad to hear.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
especially the faces here and stuff. Go on.
I was just gonna say, some people have mentioned that have read book one and two, like they get that like '90s nostalgia hit, which is awesome because I grew up with those books in the '90s, and you know, I still love that style, and I still, obviously that's why I draw like I do. So when people say like, "Oh man, this makes me feel like I'm in the '90s again," it's like I did my job. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
want people to feel that and just get excited about it again. Like just you could just dive into the line work and just be like mesmerized and sit on a page for 5 minutes and just be like, man, look at that. Like, you know, that's
for
when a
sure.
comic is like, it takes you, what I mean? It's not just about the story, which people have said the story is good too, which is awesome. But, I want people to be like into the artwork. You know what I mean? That's what got me into art. That's what got me into the comics in the '90s. Like I just sat there and looked at Mark Silvestri, Dale Keown, and all those guys. Like, dang, how did they do that? Like,
Mm.
you know.
Oh
So
heck yeah, yeah. I got to get the black and white edition of this because, man, I love colors, but line art, especially your line art, which has a lot of contrast in it, it's very readable, and the balance of detail that you've got there, it's made to be admired, just
mm,
as the line art alone, I think. And I know that you've made a black and white version available in this, or a line art only version available in the campaign. So that's great to see because that's the one that, well, I'll need to jump on board with this very soon too because I think it's closing up soon. Is that correct? When's
um,
this closing up?
so this one is in demand.
Yeah.
With Indiegogo, you have the option to be in demand, which is great. I do
Okay.
have a Kickstarter going right now. That
Oh,
one
cool.
is finishing up on the 26th of July this month.
Right.
So yeah, that one's got about 12 days left or so.
Okay.
Um,
12 days left. Gotcha.
yeah. Now, and just to point out, that one does have a cool exclusive variant. So you might want to check that one out. So, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
one is about 400 or so away from being fully funded. So I would just point people there if you want to check out some cool stuff and help me get over the finish line fully
Yeah, for
funded.
sure. I'll put a link in the description below as well to the Kickstarter if you want to head on over there and back that version.
Cool.
Yeah, I actually misunderstood what you were saying when you brought up the Kickstarter when we were messaging each other. I thought you meant that's when it started. That's when
Oh,
you were
okay.
launching it. Yeah,
No,
not,
no.
not when it was wrapping up. But anyway, glad we got in there and managed to organize something beforehand.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And I
just
mean, both campaigns are very similar. The only thing with the Indiegogo campaign, it's kind of more about Shadow Sentry Origins, because I launched the other, book one and book two on Indiegogo. So the Kickstarter is kind of like if you're new to it and you want to get your feet wet, get book one and two. That's kind of made for newcomers. You know what I mean? Um,
yeah, for
so
sure.
and then,
Awesome.
but it does have the exclusive cover you can check out.
So you've got like that second chance to find out where it all began for Eric and Shadow Sentry.
Heck yeah.
Awesome, man. And yeah, I know I keep on gushing over this page, but the other thing that I wanted to point out is how awesome you made the environment look, the
Mm.
background,
Yeah, man.
and
Well,
this one here, these shops, because man, it did not look that cool in the layouts, but you really brought the interiors to life here, and just made it magic. These sexy ladies as well,
well,
and
that's all due to you, man.
Akira.
That
Oh,
but and just so people know, man, you all those bricks Clayton did lay out and he put in there, all the boards on the ceiling, like that's Clayton put that all in there for me. So it's
yeah,
that's why
really.
I love collaborating, and it's like you get to do your thing and then I get to come over it and do my thing. It's awesome. It's a fun process.
Yeah, I didn't expect to actually put as much work into these layouts as I did. Sorry to tell you, Eric. But I know that when you probably first saw my layouts, they weren't that tight either. And so when I
Mm.
started getting more and more clean, well, it was sort of from page one. I was handing in super clean layouts for you, and I was like,
Yeah.
damn, I hope I'm giving Eric some room to work here to add what he wants, because sometimes if I make my own layouts too tight, when it gets to the inking, I'll find that that the inks themselves start losing a little bit of life to them, just because
Yeah.
I was so tight on those roughs. And so, but I mean, you clearly didn't run into that problem at all. You've certainly added your own flavor over the top of those layouts and just made it your own. Yeah, you made it look magical. So it's
Cool,
great to
man.
see. It really is.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been fun, man. Every time I sit down and I start inking, I'm like, dude, this is like dream job right here, man. This is
Sweet.
cool.
That's really cool. Well, I can't wait to see some of the other characters in the book and what you've done with those as well, such as that Akira page where he's holding down the guy on the slab. And
Heck
then
yeah.
you've also got, well, I know Satan makes an appearance in this book. I hope I'm not giving away any spoilers there, but
No, man.
um, yeah,
Go check it
it's
out.
going to be cool to see your rendition of those characters over the top of the layouts I did for them.
Yeah. Have you seen the Kickstarter exclusive cover?
Yeah, I have. Let me get that up. Let me get
Because
this
it
Kickstarter.
Satan and Akira, the Iron Demon, both make an appearance, which is super sweet. So, and then two, I
Nice.
so your layout that you did for it was like that upshot you did of Satan that was on like the first page of with him on it.
Mm.
I used that to put in the background because like this shot was like too perfect, man. So I like put that down and I inked over it. So you get some credit on the cover, man.
Ah, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Wow, that's two covers then.
yeah, yeah.
All right, I'm trying to find the Kickstarter,
Okay,
but
so
it's not on Google either.
search Shadow Sentry on Kickstarter because it wouldn't be Shadow Sentry Origins, it would just be Shadow Sentry.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that now. All right, Kickstarter, here we go. Search. They got a lot of cool things on Kickstarter sometimes.
Yeah. Yep.
And how
Yep.
have you been finding your experience on Kickstarter? Have you been at all uh, persecuted on there?
No, not that I've noticed. No.
Good, good. I'm pleased to
Yeah.
hear that. All right, well, let's get this up here.
So I mean, it hasn't been like like people are like hustling and just getting over there to buy it, but it's kind of slow, but it's
But
all good.
still,
Yeah.
that's 26 backers on board, and then you've got over 200 backers on Indiegogo. Man, I
Mhm.
know that it might not have met your expectations, but remember, there was once upon a time where if you're an indie comic creator, I know when we first released like the original version of Kozor, which didn't look anything like the end product we ultimately fulfilled on our Indiegogo campaign, but back then we had it available, and I think 12 people bought it over multiple years of it being up there. And
Mm,
so, yeah, it's just amazing that now we found ourselves in a time where an independent creator such as yourself can, maybe not make a full time living off of doing comics, but still see a significant return on their investment
hmm.
of
Yeah,
time and effort. And just the fact that so many people are going to be holding this book in their hands, experiencing it, taking it in, hopefully becoming fans that will ideally back again the next time around.
for
So,
sure.
yeah, it's just really cool to see. So, we've got the Kickstarter campaign here too. And as you were saying, a really cool looking exclusive Kickstarter cover, which is great to see. I like the idea of that, creating exclusive covers for the different platforms. And even if you decide to make this available on your website or another website, it'd be cool to see another exclusive cover just for that
Hmm.
particular outlet.
Yeah, because I mean, people that have backed on Indiegogo, I wanted to give something to those fans as well. Like, all right, well, why would I go over there and get anything over there? Well, I got a cool cover and it's
Yeah,
exclusive. So, and yeah, so I've got a few new backers, and some of the guys from Indiegogo came over and picked up the exclusive cover. So excited about that.
absolutely. I mean, that sounds really cool. And have you thought about putting your book on the website Fund My Comic?
I have actually, and it is on there.
Oh, it is on there too. Great.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
So
that
that
platform.
one,
Yeah, go
that
ahead.
one, I did the catch up, like book 1 and 2 catch up. If people haven't gotten the book yet, you can go over there. It's also got the black and white artist editions that I did,
Hmm.
and yeah, so it is available.
Ah, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Very
that
beautiful cover.
that website seems to be really taking off and
Hmm.
getting more and more of a good reputation, positive reputation for crowdfunding comics. I'm excited to put our next one up on there too and make it available because I think the more options we've got when it comes to crowdfunding comics, the better.
For
I mean,
sure.
it's all about getting eyes on the project, and I see them as outlets for being able to do that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and you're
yeah,
gonna get more. Like there might be people that might not ever see it if you don't go on the different platforms. So
for sure.
it's just a way to get it in front of people.
100%.
Thank you, Michael.
And then you've got, yeah, so this is the cover that we're talking about here. And was this pose of Hopscotch in the Hopscotch Origins book? Did I do a layout for that?
No, no, just the
Cool. Gotcha. I
just
didn't
the headshot.
recognize it.
Yeah, no, just the headshot of Satan.
Yeah, that's pretty
So
sweet.
yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, man.
can't wait. Can't wait to see this book in the flesh once you put it out. I'm looking
Hmm.
forward to experiencing it.
Cool, cool. Yeah, and then my colorist, Carbon Graphics, he's like amazing. Always does a great job. So he nailed it, and he covered your cover. He colored your cover as well, which the
Mm.
colors on that are fantastic.
I really love this colorist, but he's not the colorist on the interiors, right?
Correct. Yeah. Although he did
Gotcha.
do the first page, that headshot of Hopscotch, he did that.
Yep,
Um,
that's
at
right.
the Yeah, at the time my colorist, his dad passed away, and I didn't think he was going to be available, and so we kind of had this plan going. Like I was going to do the first pass on the colors, and then he was going to come behind me and do the color, like come after me and do his
Yeah,
thing. But then the other guy ended up coming back, and but he did the first page for me, and it came out great. So I'm like, all right, man.
very nice. Yeah, really awesome stuff, man. This is going to be an epic looking book. And so, how far are you into Hopscotch Origins in terms of the inking and the coloring? How close is it to finally getting out there and in the hands of backers?
So it's halfway done. I finished page 12. Dog's making noise over there.
Oh, very
Yes, I'm
nice.
up to page 12, and I had kind of had to take a pause. Next week is the San Diego Comic Con, and I got
Hmm.
a few commissions, and so unfortunately, I haven't been able to ink any new pages this week. And next week will be busy too, but I'm excited to get back to it. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool, man. I'm waiting in suspense here, but you're going through it and you're taking your time, and that's super important. You got to do that. I think that when you've got a creator who's got that level of patience, not to rush it, but to stick with it, make it the very best product that it can be, you've got to admire it and you got to get behind creators like that because you don't often see it. It's really hard to commit yourself to a project that long term,
Mm.
but you're someone who does it. You've done it many times before and you're doing it again now. And so, and how are you feeling? You still feeling motivated, still feeling inspired to get this book out there, still waking up excited to work on it and
Heck
smash
yeah,
out these pages?
definitely, man. Yeah. When you were sending in the layouts and the breakdowns, and just like looking at them, and because it's neat, because when I do it myself, it's all on me. And so I'll lay out maybe 3 pages, at a time. And so, but with this book, it's like I get the full story. And so, as I'm going through it, it's like, oh, I can't wait to get to that page. Oh, I can't wait to ink that,
Mhm.
and I can't wait to, ink that awesome splash page of Satan. And, so it keeps me motivated, keeps me going, and super excited about it, man.
Yeah, it is very exciting. That's how I feel about seeing these inks come out from you over the layouts.
Mm.
There's pages I'm thinking of right now where I'm like, man, I can't wait to see what Eric does with that page. And I'm sure that must have been a similar experience for you when I was handing them in based on the script. And
Hmm.
I know it's not all about Hopscotch. I know that you've actually got another story in Shadow Sentry Origins as well, which is all illustrated by you, I believe. The
Hmm.
inks and the pencils alike, and then you've got the colorist going over the top of that.
Yep, yep.
So when it comes to working over the top of someone else's layouts as opposed to your own, what kind of difference does that make? I know you've said before that it still takes about the same amount of time maybe to do the inks, but
Yeah.
um, I guess it requires yeah, well, just how does it feel to work over the top of layouts that you didn't really have to think about?
Yeah,
Does it
it's
take the
nice.
stress off? Are you able to have a little bit more fun?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's still that level of like, the nerves of it, because you don't want to mess it up, and
Yep.
you're giving it your all. Um, but at the same time, it's kind of like, it's a bit different style, so I get to approach it in a different way, and it does make it a little more fun in that regard. So,
Yeah.
and the way you're drawing hopscotch is different than I would draw it, so I'm trying to like, um, you know, I mentioned in one of my updates, I'm still trying to find that happy balance between both of our styles. I don't want to
Yeah, for
overdo
sure.
my style. I want to keep your the fun and the excitement of your lines, and I want to I want people to look at it and say, "Oh, I could see Clayton's work underneath of that." You know what I mean? It's not like all me. So, yeah, it's fun. It's and inking is kind of like not mindless, but it's a bit different, right? So you can kind of
Mm,
just like you get in that zen state where you're just like just going through the motion and you're doing it and laying down your line work. Not all that thinking has to go into it. That's what goes into
mhm,
the layouts and breakdowns. So
for
it's just
sure.
it's fun, man. Definitely enjoy it. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it's funny with the layouts and then the inking, but you're not just inking straight in over the top. You are getting creative, at least with the lighting and the shadow placement and then the rendering as well. And
Mhm.
you don't pencil that out first, right? You just completely wing it on the inks right
So
then and there.
there are most of the rendering, most of the cross hatching is done on the fly.
Yeah, wow.
But on
Confidence.
on the pages where the guy's running through the alleyway, as soon as you gave me the layouts, like my mind was like going crazy. Like, okay, I could see shadows I could place there, and so I would just kind of like quick run and put them in, and like just for placement, just while it's fresh in my head, like, oh, I can see this looking cool. So I would do that right
Wow.
away, and then kind of like mark out where the blacks would go, things like that, just to help me, later on, because I know I'd forget about it, and I'm like, all right, let me do it now. I got it on the page, and then when I print it out, it's like I already know mostly where my big blacks are going. And then yeah, and then kind of all the rendering on the backgrounds is just I do that on the fly, and
Mhm.
yeah, man.
Yeah, it's really, really cool to think about. I feel as though it. optimizes the process a lot. It means that you don't have to overload your brain with the considerations that would go into laying it out. And there's a lot of them. Like I could spend in it. Well, as you know, can spend a long time doing layouts, but
Yeah.
then the inking process is a whole other area of consideration as well. And so most of the time, if you're going at it on your own, you got to do all of that. You got to think about everything that's involved with the layouts and then everything that's involved with the inking. And some people do colors on top of that too on their own. And that's just one page. It's such an overwhelming, fatiguing task just to get it done.
Hmm.
Whereas, and I guess this is why they tend to work this way with comic books, and they always sort of have in the mainstream industry. You've got the penciler, you've got the ink, and you've got the colorist, and each are focused on their own little area. And yeah, I feel like that is a cool way to work when you can find the right person to work with.
Yeah. Now, to stick a knife in your heart, tell me what you think about this. When you think of all that work that goes into a single page or even just a panel, and someone reads that in like 5 seconds and they pass it over and they turn the
Yeah,
page, how does that make you feel?
yeah, it's funny.
Hours and hours and hours,
Yeah,
and
it's
like,
hours
oh,
and hours of work and dedication, but for an experience that might not last a huge amount of time, might last a very short amount of time, but I think the level of impact that that little moment of experience is, uh, the longer it'll stay with someone
mhm. Yeah,
and the better they'll feel. Because it's all about, well, how does the reader feel when they experience your comic? How are you making them feel? And if they feel great at the end of it and they're sitting there and they're hungry for more, then that's the best place that they can be in.
mhm,
I guess it's like when you watch a movie, you don't necessarily, even the movies that you love, you don't remember every single scene. You might remember many of them, but you don't remember every single one.
mhm.
But you love it because of the feeling that it gave you.
Yeah,
And you add up all the little experiences that the many readers out there who jump on board with your comic will have. I don't know, maybe it somehow justifies all that hard work.
I think so. Good answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think about all the comics I read growing up, and like they're the ones I go back to again and
Yeah.
again, and for inspiration or just because I love the story, or just like that image that kind of sticks in your head, and it's like, oh man, I got to see that again, and then you just go back and look at it, or it's just. And good point with the movies, it's the same thing. I've watched the Lord of the Rings many times, and all those movies we just keep going back, and it's like you love the feeling it gives
Mhm.
you, and for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. And so, but I have the same thought, especially when I'm reading somebody else's comic. Yeah, this is great, but I'm spending 2 seconds looking at it, just reading through it, and yeah, it can be discouraging when you realize that that's probably how other people are experiencing your book. But in the end, too, part of the reason that we draw comics is for the journey of it, for the experience that we have actually creating it,
Yeah,
and there's something incredible about making something awesome. We feel compelled to do it. Like when we see a Mark Silvestri comic that really inspires us, or Michael Turner's Witchblade, and
mm,
it fills you with this energy that compels you to want to make your own. Like
yeah,
you want to do something with how it makes you feel and produce a similar level of impact in whatever it is you're going to create. And so great creations breed great creations, I think.
yeah, yeah, for
Seems
sure.
to be inherent within the human condition to want to create.
Yeah,
They say that human beings are made in with the face of God, or is it the other way around? In the image of God, or something
in
like
the
that.
image of, yeah,
And if you think of him as the ultimate creator, not to get all religious on everybody, but this is just more of a metaphor. Think of it as that. But if you think of him as the ultimate creator, and all humans seem to be inherently compelled to create stuff, seems to
Yeah.
be one of the deepest motivations that we have. And so,
Yep.
yeah, that's how, well, I guess that's the sort of stuff I think about when I'm sitting there working on my comic books.
For sure, man. Yeah. We get that from the creator, and yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. We love creating.
we certainly do. We certainly
Yeah.
do. I mean, it's the funnest thing in the world. Everything else just seems like maintenance, maintaining the things that are already created.
Right.
But
No, but
yeah,
I
so
I I would 100% agree because growing up reading Image Comics, like just the passion and just when those guys made Image and they started making their own books, like you just felt like this different level of passion coming from them, and it's their
mm,
creations, it's their art, like it was just they're on fire, and so looking at Witchblade and all those books, like man, like that that inspired me to like, okay, I want to create, I want to do my own thing. And obviously for us it starts out as like, okay, first I got to get my foot in, I got to draw well, and then maybe someday down the road I can do my own creation. But thankfully with everything that's happened and with Comicsgate, I mean that's kind of more of a possibility now than it
yeah,
was 10 years ago. And we could do our own books.
for sure, man. I think the landscape is just changing in such a big way right now with everything, with
Mhm.
movies, with comic books, with music. Sometimes in a scary way. With the AI stuff coming out,
Mhm.
I saw something recently about a bunch of writers uh, going on strike
Yeah.
from Netflix and a bunch of the big studios in
Hmm.
America, and the the response to that was the big studios didn't care because I guess they've got AI that can just take their place anyway. So
Yeah.
that for me is, oh, okay, the future is here. But at the same time, we're talking big companies, and big companies are somewhat going out of fashion at the moment.
Mhm.
It seems to be independent creators who have their own studios or brand that they've been promoting is really the thing that's attracting people, attracting audiences. I mean, you can see that on YouTube and
Yeah.
with some of the personalities and influencers on there. And what's really cool about that is they can sell their own comics if they want to. They can sell their own sneakers. They can sell whatever they want. You got people who want to make movies with movie review channels. You've got people who want to make comic books with how to draw channels or talking about pop culture stuff. And they're garnering viewers,
Yeah.
and they're building up their subscribers that are ready to hear what they have to say and look into the things that they have to offer. And I feel like this is just becoming a bigger and bigger thing. You're seeing independent movies take over Hollywood movies at this point in
Yeah.
time, which is just crazy to think. Like Hollywood
Mhm.
movies that have massive franchises that have been around forever are getting taken over by new stuff that is being made by studios that were pretty much unheard of before.
Yep.
And so it's just really amazing to see that happen, and it's exciting.
Yeah. It's like kind of like a grassroots kind of thing, where it's like
Yeah,
just people doing what they love, and it's hitting a chord with everybody, and speaking of what you just mentioned, I saw the Sound of Freedom movie,
yeah,
and
that's what I'm talking about.
amazing, yeah. And I
Yeah,
saw that it was doing better than Indiana Jones.
it's
That's
doing
crazy
better
to
than a
talk.
lot of things. Yeah, I think they were
Yeah,
saying a $40
dude.
million opening weekend or something like that.
Yeah, and we went on Tuesday night, and
Yeah,
Tuesday night at a movie theater is not really packed usually, but this was like
really?
a packed
No
theater, packed.
way.
Yeah. So
That's
I mean,
incredible.
yeah, that just that speaks volumes, man. Um,
Yeah, and you know what else I've noticed is that there's movie actors that were part of really big Hollywood movies that are starting to get into other movies that actually have great storylines and
mhm.
and directors that you might not have heard as much about, and they're doing really well. Like, I watched this movie that's been around for a while, just the other day, and it's got Chris Hemsworth in it. It's called Extraction. I don't know if
Okay,
you've
yeah.
seen that,
Yeah.
but man, that was a sick movie. It was one of the coolest action movies I've seen in ages. It's probably a
Yeah.
little bit more mainstream than the Sound of Freedom, which it's just great that the word is getting out there about that movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we're living in a really encouraging time for creatives, even if on the surface with the AI stuff it can look a little bit bleak.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know, you know, uh, yeah, hearing some of the stuff that, movie studios can do with it down the road is like mind-boggling. Like,
Yeah.
to have people be able to have your face on, somebody else's body, and like you be in the movie and like create your own AI movie. That's insane.
Yeah, I'm hearing about stuff like
you
that.
know.
They're saying that that's how it might evolve. That people will just use AI to create their own movies for the weekend,
Yeah.
and who knows? Probably later on, their own video games. They'll be able to. I think that they will be able to easily do that.
Mm.
Um, I mean, think of something as simple as Minecraft. That is almost that experience, right?
Yeah.
Creating your own sort of game experience, and so
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of avenues that you could think down with the future of technology and entertainment and where it all might lead.
hmm It's interesting to think like, okay, what movies came out, 20 years ago that are like, almost prophetic and like what's to come. I think of like Ready
Yeah.
Player One and the people all in their living rooms, doing the VR and just having a good old time. And it's like everything else just kind of like,
Oh yeah.
it's
Yeah, absolutely.
insane.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is with the movies in Hollywood, it almost already seemed like AI was writing a lot of them. Like
Mm.
maybe either AI will save that industry
Right.
because man, I mean it was lacking some kind of substance. I don't know whether it was because of AI or a lack of talent or a lack of
Yeah.
AI, but I feel like if AI was able to solve whatever was going on in Hollywood at the moment and bring out some good new fresh stuff that was actually interesting, that'd be cool to see. And it's
Yeah.
same with comics. Um because I know that that's there's some comic book companies out there, independents that are starting to create AI comic books. Now, to what degree of effectiveness, I can't tell you, but
Mm.
needless to say, it's almost inevitable that that technology is going to evolve enough to do it quite proficiently. The thing is, Eric, though, that I miss the old school stuff.
Mm.
I miss the grittiness of it, the uncleanliness of it, the the roughness. You think about the 90s and the 80s and even the 70s and the movies that they were able to put out. And you've got the comic books as well that really just had that. You could see the handmade feel
Mm. Yeah.
of the epic art that was being produced. So it wasn't just a handmade; it was awesome looking, and but it wasn't perfect. And I feel like the thing that you see with AI art a lot of the time is just it's close to getting perfect. It will be perfect at some point, and
Yeah.
it'll look amazing, but it will be missing the human touch that I definitely think is there. And in a weird way, it's the imperfection that gives it that human touch. Because
Mm.
I was on Twitter and I was just scrolling through my news feed, and you see AI art pop up from time to time,
Yeah.
but because my news feed is mixed in with creators who are crowdfunding their books on Indiegogo and Kickstarter, you'll see them pop up too, and just the contrast between
Mm.
the the almost impossible level of the AI art and then the really grounded, down to earth feel that you get with human, traditionally made art,
Yeah.
man, there's a magic to that that is undeniable. You know, I know that it seems a little bit out there, like maybe it's wishful thinking on behalf of artists, but I really do feel like that's something that is objectively present as a comparison between the two.
Yeah. I remember a book, gosh, when I first got into comics, when I got my internship at Alias Comics, they were producing a book. I can't remember the title of it. Something Chronicles, Dreamland Chronicles, maybe. But this gentleman had done everything in like 3D, like like I don't even know the program he used, but it
Oh
was all
yeah,
like 3D. It looked like it was a cartoon. It
yeah,
came
I've
from a
seen stuff
cartoon.
like that.
Yeah, and so every panel was almost like a clip from from what he created in the program, and
Hmm.
it never interested me, and it was just kind of like, you know if I want to watch a cartoon, I'm going to go flip on the TV. If I want to watch something that's super realistic, I'm going to go watch a movie. Like it just didn't have the same feel, and it just kind of, I don't know why. And when I see comics like that, it just kind of sucks the fun out of it, and maybe it's
Hmm.
just that human aspect where it's like hand drawn, it's created, I don't know, it's just more fun. I can't explain it, but just it's
Yeah,
never interested me.
there's some kind of mysterious energy that seems to come through in an art that has a history, that's had a journey, that's had effort put into it, that's
Yeah.
had care and love put into it, human thought. Uh, we're not perfect, and sometimes we're not even good at it, but we certainly try and we put in the effort. I think that's really what people connect with. It's what people fall in love with. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the hero's journey, right? It's not about victory necessarily, it's about failing and learning and changing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really almost everything we create. It goes through that down that path,
Yeah.
and hopefully we come out the other end a slightly better artist than we were before we set out to create it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really fun stuff to think about.
And it made me think of just the other day I was watching a YouTube video on Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird creating the Ninja Turtles, and just
Mm,
kind of going through their story, and just looking at those early pages, and just like super gritty, not perfect in any means, but just knew they were having fun. You could feel the excitement, the passion, and like it was like great stuff. It's like you miss all that when you do something like just AI rendered or computer generated, like where it's
mhm.
like, you know what I mean? Not
Yeah,
bashing digital art at all, but but just like the doing that 3D, like you're creating it all in a program. All the faces look exactly the same. Everything looks identical. It kind of just loses that freshness, I
yeah.
guess.
And it's also not as fun to create. So here's something really interesting. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think AI art is a trip. I mean, it's amazing what it can do.
Yeah.
And Corey and I were messing around in it because just the novelty. We were like, "Whoa, look at what this stuff can create." But you know what hooks you on creating AI art? Do you know why it's fun to create? Because it's flawed. And the
Mm.
fun aspect of it is getting it to do the hands right. It's like, okay, what am I going to add in here to make sure the hands work out this time? And it'll get to a certain point where it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And then all of a sudden, the interest just dies
Mm.
because there's nothing else to, there's nothing, no challenge there. There's no reason to do it. It loses all reason.
Mm.
It's like a video game that has no point at a certain level.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I feel like that's why art is so fun to create because we are always trying to work out new ways of doing things, better ways of doing things, and if not trying to solve a problem, new ways that we can, like new avenues that we can take, different
Yeah.
ways we can change things up.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny that when we work out a problem within our art and we solve it, that and unless there's something else to move on to, if we think we've figured it out, all of a sudden we just, oh man, like what do we do next? Like
Yeah.
it almost seems to be no point to go on. So I don't know, man. If artists just love suffering, I don't know if that's it, but it it was an interesting observation that I made. Like the novelty wears off with AI art, at least on the creator's behalf, the
Mm,
moment that
it all figured
you've
out.
taken it as far as you can take it, really.
Yeah.
Despite how amazing it might be and what it might be able to pull off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you start just inputting a few things and the AI does the rest, that's like, well, where's the fun in that? Like, you kind of like
Yeah,
want the creativity and uh,
you're just
to be able
clicking a
to,
button,
yeah, exactly.
and it's crazy it's weird the fact that you can click that button and every time it'll spit something amazing out that should be incredible. That should be the dream, right?
Mm,
To be able to click a button and something amazing comes out every time.
right. I want my
Except,
microwave to do that.
yeah, except it's not. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Speaking from experience, I mean, the only addictive quality of it, the only reason that it was fun to do was just because it wasn't doing it properly, and so there was that challenge to make it,
Yeah.
try to, and same with the so you guys know that I run the online business howtodrawcomics.net, and so I was getting all sorts of ads coming up in my news feed for chat gpt, do your courses in like 5 minutes with AI, write out your ads and this and that. I'm like, okay, let's see what this chat gpt is all about. And it's cool and all, but you can't really, unless you can put your own personality into this stuff, I feel like,
Mm,
I don't know, man. It's just more words. It's just more words out there in the world, and we got plenty of those.
right.
But we got plenty of images. We got plenty of JPEGs on the internet that'll look really amazing. But unless you're putting yourself into these things, there's nothing really that special about it. And so, despite the fact I could write out, like, so let's say, a Facebook post in a second that was informative and expansive, I went back to just writing out my own stuff. I also felt like if you're just using AI to do this stuff, to do your art, to do the hard work, you actually become, I hate to say it, I feel like you become a little bit dumber because you don't think about it as much anymore. And I was starting to miss, like I was starting to
Mm,
get scared that I wasn't going to be able to write anything anymore. And so,
yeah.
I'd written maybe a few posts with ChatGPT just to see what happens, but yeah, man, it was a very strange experience, I have to say. And
I
so,
bet. Well,
yeah,
and if I mean, I see the aspect where you like feel like you're getting dumber because it's like you don't have to think anymore, right? So it's like it just does it for you, right? It thinks for you. So I mean, if a whole bunch of people start doing it, and it's
yeah,
like everybody's just going to be like push a button, push a button. I mean,
yeah,
what's going to become of the human race, man?
yeah,
If everybody goes that route,
that's
it's
super crazy.
but then too on the flip side, it's like AI art might be great for traditional guys like me, where it's like people want, okay, I want the old stuff, give me the old stuff, you know what I mean? Like I want the traditional, I want to see the you know what I mean,
Yeah,
the grittiness, I want to see the paper with the ink on it, so maybe
absolutely.
that'll drive people to us old school dudes.
There's definitely ways that to work it in and to use it as a tool, I think. I do believe that. John Malin said something very interesting. He said, imagine for a moment if you could draw something out, like let's say draw out a layout, and you could get the AI to ink it up like Joe Weems.
Hmm.
Then okay, that's sort of interesting to think about because you're still getting to put effort in.
Hmm.
But again, I feel like if it was doing that every time without fail, and it was able to create a perfect Joe Weems inked rendition of your layouts, that latter aspect of the creation process, I don't know, man. It would just feel so unsatiating on a creative level. It would, yeah. I just feel like it would be a non-aspect of the creative process. It wouldn't be the funnest part, that's for sure. It'd just be like the,
Yeah.
yeah, even putting effort into posting out a new piece of work, like it feels satisfying to hit the post button, the submit button to get it out there because you've created it, you've done up the post for it, and now whatever happens next is the reward of your efforts, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's definitely it's such a strange, almost philosophical thing to think about, and I don't think there's anything that's ever been more philosophical than this because philosophy, it doesn't seem to it's not something you can hold or touch or feel or sense physically, but at the same time, this stuff we're talking about, like the human connection with creativity, that that really is there. I don't think that's some magical thing that doesn't exist. I think that's literally somehow there,
Yeah.
both on the artist's behalf and on the audiences as well.
Yeah.
And I think that in the end, if the mainstream large comic book companies start resorting to using AI and people clue on to that, it's just going to drive them to us, the people who are still creating stuff with by hand with our minds.
Yeah. I mean, in one respect, I could see the like, okay, what would I do with that if I could maybe not lay it out, but maybe do a little more fine finished penciling and then have AI ink it. I
Yeah,
mean, that'd be a huge time saver for me.
it
I
would
mean,
be. Yeah,
I could get my books out twice as fast.
yeah.
um, so I mean, I could see how I could use that. But then again, it's like, okay, well, what am I losing in the artwork? What am I losing from my, my art? And you know what I mean? So you kind of got to weigh the pros and
Mm.
cons. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting thought process. And
It is an interesting thought process.
yeah,
It's. I don't even know how I would feel about that
yeah.
because
I
it's
mean,
like
how good would it be?
it
Really?
would be good. I think it would be good, but I don't know how it would actually be. I suspect that. Well, I love it when someone else inks my work and does a really great job, I guess. So I guess in a sense, like there's if you're hiring an inker to go over the top of your art and they do a really good job, that's super exciting to see. So
Yeah.
if you could get that same feeling from the AI, then that'd be good.
Mhm.
Somehow knowing that it was done by an AI though really
Right. See, I
really
think,
dampens the experience a little bit.
yeah. I mean, as long as you could keep that you know human aspect to it, like because I wouldn't like people that can't draw. Maybe they can write, but they can't draw. Like, okay, well, let me write because I could do that. Let me get AI to do the rest. You know what I mean? Save money, save time, whatever. Like, I could see the use for that for some people. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? But you got to keep that creative juice to it. You know, if you lose that, then it's like, well, forget it.
for
Like
sure.
again, like the dude with the 3D art, it's like that sucks all the fun out of it for me. So like I wouldn't even touch that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I do. I think there's actually probably a really good chance that AI inkers are going to come about pretty soon.
hmm,
Um, because you can already put badly drawn stuff into an AI generator and it'll pop out something that I don't know looks cool.
hmm,
So yeah, I don't know, man. We'll see what the future holds. We did get somewhat carried away on this topic. Thanks for all the comments in the chat. It's good to see.
no,
Yeah, yeah. Might become self aware at some point. This is the future.
yep. Good point, Ryan
But
Cardinal.
we'll wrap this up now, and yeah, guys, check out Shadow Sentry books 1 and 2, the prequel plus Origins on Kickstarter, and also
Mhm.
Shadow Sentry Origins on Indiegogo. What I want to do here before we wrap it up, we'll go ahead and watch the trailer. And
Nice.
yeah, just let me know if you can't hear this, because you should be able to hear it. Very cool. Very cool indeed. Oh, I can't hear you.
There you
There we
go.
go.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, man.
Cool. That was super awesome. All right, let's get back to this. Now, I wanted to ask you something.
Hmm.
Who did the colors for this cover here?
That is Carbon Graphics again.
Wow. So that's pretty awesome. That's some amazing coloring work. So
Yep,
he
yep.
also did these colors here too.
Correct. Yeah. And your cover he colored. Yep.
Stunning. Yep. Had a lot of fun on that cover too.
Yeah.
Man, really awesome stuff. It's exciting. Guys, if you would like some 90s action packed comic book goodness, be sure to hit the link in the description below. Go to the Indiegogo campaign. I'll have the Kickstarter link up there as well. Secure your copy of this book and experience it for yourself. Got to support creators like Eric Ninaltowski so that he keeps on putting out this level of awesome comic book content for us.
Please do, guys. Yeah, man. I think you'll be really excited about what you see. Yeah, I hope you'll see the quality and the hard work that it's put into it, each and every page. So I know you guys will like it.
Oh, it's very, very clear that you're putting an immense amount of effort into these pages. We can see the love, Eric. I want to
Cool.
thank you so much for joining me today, man. It's always an absolute pleasure to catch up, and I hope we can do it again real soon.
Cool, man. Real quick, Jay asked, how many pages is the book? So the first book in the series, book number 1, is 54 pages, story and art. Book 2 is 50. It's either 50 or 52. I'm drawing a blank. And then the new book, Shadow Sentry Origins, will be 50 pages as well. And it's 2 parts, 2 stories. So you get 25 pages of Clayton doing his breakdowns and layouts, me inking him. And then the other story will be 25 pages as well of
That's
all my
amazing.
art. Yeah,
Awesome,
yeah.
man. Cool, cool. All right, everyone. Well, big thank you to the chat for joining us today. Always love having you here. Appreciate your comments, appreciate your questions, and we will see you again real soon.
Thank
Until
you,
then,
guys.
keep on drawing, and we'll catch you later. Bye bye for now.